We are going to study science, and this is for class 8, and this is part 2 of the video that I have posted earlier. So we were studying the chapter crop production and management. Till now we have seen in first video we have seen that how every living organisms need food to survive, and how early human beings learn to cultivate the land for farming and for growing crops. And we have also written the meaning of agriculture word and what are crops. We have also seen what are crops. So to meet the food demands of a large population, we need to grow plants on a large scale, and when plants of the same type are grown in an area on a large scale, it is known as crop. So plant of same type, only one type of plant, when it is grown on a large area, it is called crop. Now moving on. Types of crops. The climatic conditions such as temperature, rainfall and humidity required for the growth of crops vary from region to region. These factors and the season affect the kind of crops grown in a particular area during a specific period of the year. In India, there are broadly two types of crops, Kharif crops and Rabi crops. So basically, the growth of crops depend on the different types of climatic conditions and factors that are temperature and humidity. So basically, crop grown in India depend on different climatic conditions and factors. And India, the climate varies from region to region, and even the factors vary. So basically, there are two different types of crops grown in two different types of seasons. Number one is Kharif crops. The crops that are cultivated during the rainy season are called Kharif crops. So Kharif crops are crops that are sown during rainy season, in beginning of rainy season. In India, the Kharif season is generally from June to September. Rice, sorghum, pearl, millet, maize, soya bean, groundnut, and cocoa and cotton are example of Kharif crops. So these are some crops that are sown, cultivated in beginning of rainy season. Rice is an important Kharif crop grown in India, and India is the second largest producer of rice in the world. Rice crop has a very high water requirement. It is usually grown in waterlogged fields. Coming to next, Rabi crops. The crops cultivated during the winter season are called Rabi crops. So generally, Rabi crops are crops that are sown in winter season. During the winter season means end of the monsoon season and beginning of the winter season, these crops are cultivated. In India, the Rabi season is generally from October to March. Wheat, barley, oat, pea, gram, and mustard are examples of Rabi crops. Wheat is a major Rabi crop grown in India. India is the second largest producer of wheat in the world. Wheat has a moderate water requirement but needs a cool weather. So basically, there are two different types of crops and crop seasons, Kharif crops and Rabi crops. Kharif crops are sown or cultivated during the rainy season, beginning of the rainy season. Kharif crop needs lot of water and a warm climate, hot climate. And other next is Rabi crops. Rabi crops are cultivated or sown in beginning of winter season, and it needs a cool weather. So there are some key differences between Kharif and Rabi crops. I want you all to write down these differences. Kharif crops. Kharif crops are crops which are sown at the beginning of the rainy season. Rabi crops are sown at the beginning of winter season. So Kharif crops are cultivated or sown at the beginning of rainy season, and Rabi crops are cultivated or sown at the beginning of winter season. Kharif crops. These crops are known as monsoon crops. Kharif crops are also known as monsoon crops. Rabi crops. These crops are also known as winter crops. Kharif crops. These crops depend on the rainfall pattern. So kharif crops needs lots of water and rainfall. So growth of these crops depend on the rainfall pattern. Rabi crops. These crops need moderate amount of water. Rabi crops don't need so much of water. They need moderate amount of water and cool weather. Cool weather. Kharif crops. It requires a lot of water and hot weather to grow. Rabi crops, it needs a cool weather. As I said before, Rabi crop don't need so much of water. It needs a moderate amount of water and a cool weather, whereas kharif crops requires a lot of water and hot weather. Kharif crops. Major kharif crops are rice, maize, and cotton. So these are the major kharif crops, and major rabi crops are wheat, gram, and peas, barley, etc. So please write down these key differences in your notebook. We have seen that growing of crops depend on different climatic conditions and factors, and depending on these factors and climatic conditions, there are two different types of crops and crop seasons. So for now, just revise all the things. Next is agricultural practices. What are agricultural practices, or you can say how farming is done? So we'll see in next class. Thank you.